When Odysseus finally returned home after 20 long years, 10 spent in the brutal Trojan War, and another 10 wandering strange lands and surviving God's curses, his kingdom was barely recognizable. His palace had been overrun by suitors, arrogant men who believed Odysseus was dead and that his wife, Penelope, was theirs to claim. But Penelope, ever faithful and shrewd, devised a test, one that only her true husband could pass. She declared that whoever could string Odysseus's massive war bow and shoot an arrow clean through 12 axe heads placed in a perfect line would win her hand. The suitors stepped forward, one after the other, each confident in their strength. But the bow resisted them. It was no ordinary weapon. It required not just muscle, but mastery. They had power, but lacked control. They had urgency, but no patience. Then, from the corner of the hall, a ragged beggar stood up. Laughter followed. Who was this old, weathered man who dared approach the sacred bow? But the beggar was Odysseus in disguise. Silently, he took the weapon in his hands. With the calm of someone who had carried storms in his soul, he bent the bow. One smooth motion. He drew the string, aimed, and let the arrow fly. It pierced every axe head, one after another with flawless precision. In that single moment, 20 years of silence and 20 years of long suffering roared into justice. This was not just the triumph of strength. It was the reward of a man who had tolerated everything most warriors would not. He had watched strangers eat his food, court his wife, and rule his palace. He had endured the humiliation of being unrecognized in his own kingdom, living like a ghost among the very people he once led. He had carried his greatness in secret, choosing timing over ego and preparation over pride. He didn't scream, he didn't demand, he waited. And when the time was right, he rose, not in noise, but in precision. His kingdom was his again, not because he fought louder, but because he waited longer. Patience didn't weaken him, it refined him. It made his return not just powerful, but inevitable. If there's anything to learn from this story, it's simply that in a world where speed is celebrated, patience has become a secret weapon. And it's a weapon many people do not wield because we often mistake patience for inaction. While in truth, it's resisting the noise, controlling your impulse to rush, and allowing time to sharpen your precision. Patience is not waiting for something to happen. It's becoming the kind of person who is ready when what you're waiting for finally happens. Let's take a cue from the leatherback sea turtle. Most people don't know this, but when it hatches, it doesn't rush out of the nest immediately. Instead, it waits, sometimes up to a week, for the temperature to drop and the moonlight to strike the sand just right. That pause isn't hesitation, it's survival. If it charges into the world too early, it will either burn under the sun or fall prey to hawks. But when it waits for its moment, it joins the ocean and can live for 80 years, crossing entire hemispheres. The same is true for us. Most failures aren't from lack of ability, but from poor timing. We abandon plans too soon. We uproot dreams before they sprout. We trade depth for speed and call it ambition. But what if the strength you seek doesn't come from force, but from restraint? Patience is active. It's the soldier who trains in silence, the artist who refines in obscurity, the visionary who builds without applause. Edward Bulwer Lytton once said, "Patience is not passive. On the contrary, it is active. It is concentrated strength." People confuse it with laziness, but that is so far from the truth. Patience is disciplined waiting, waiting while growing, waiting while watching, waiting without wasting. The crowned eagle drives the point home when you consider how it hunts. Unlike most birds of prey, it doesn't waste energy flapping in panic or chasing blindly. It perches for hours, completely still, scanning. It chooses its moment and takes the time to observe its prey. and when it finally moves, it rarely misses. In other words, instinct is not what makes the eagle a great hunter. It's calculation, observation, and patience. To sum this up, I'll leave you with the words of Leo Tolstoy. The two most powerful warriors are patience and time. So maybe the challenge isn't to move faster, but to trust deeper, to grow in the dark, to sharpen in silence, and to understand that winning doesn't always look like action. It often looks like preparation.
Do like this video and subscribe to this channel. See you in the next video. Cheers!